Test 1, 2. Gonna turn my gain up and my headphone volume down so people can hear me. Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. I said 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 test. Okay, I suspect that's close enough. All right, let's find the code. Last time, no webcam tonight. It takes up too much CPU. Last time I made sure to save my pictures. Okay. Man, I'm moving slow tonight. Let's get with the code. Python bindings. Yeah, that checks. So what I've discovered, if we look at my code, I was able to get my UI to compile as a Python extension. So what that ended up requiring is a PyType object, as seen in my demo code. But this struct header was causing it to not compile under C++ 2a. It's C++ 20 standard under G++. That would be, let's see. C++ 2a, which is C++ 20 standard. I don't know that I really need anything compared to using the C++ 17 flag. But I want to stick with the new one. I at least saw there's some new methods on map that I really wanted to use, among other things. But nothing really critical, so not super important, but it did require a weird change to the Python type exposure to get it to compile. Presently, offset of gives a weird error with this, and I'll compile it now for fun just to see if there's any difference. And I don't think this struct loves things being applied as null, but let's build that. I haven't made a git commit all week for this, which is unnerving, but this says PyUA frame members. Get a capitalization wrong? That's bizarre. Yeah, that's weird. Oh, line 96 a slash. That's what I did wrong. Should read the whole error message. Yeah, so this error, basically standard object layout, learning this from my error messages as I go, but the object here would be UI frame, and this class comes from UI frame. It derives from UI drawable, and as members it has all the members of UI drawable, which would be a pointer, plain old data, virtual functions may disqualify it from being plain old data. I'm not exactly sure on this. Standard string, I'm actually not sure if that's plain old data either. Either how this guy, the rectangle box, definitely not plain old data, because single inheritance you can get away with, but multiple inheritance like SFML is using, not anything like standard data, standard layout. So this method, offset of, is a great way to expose structs to Python, because you can basically say, hey, here's a struct. It's C style, it's completely simple data. It might have like 2 ints and a pointer and a float and a boolean. That's all very obvious. You can basically just count the length of memory, find the offset, and get the exact spot in memory for that member. You cannot do that with these complicated types. I think it might be like compiler specific where on the object these different things end up, especially after you get multiple inheritance in the mix, let alone any kind of variable size members. So I'm not gonna struggle with that. I think I'm going to, like, I don't think it's wrong, I just don't think it's useful, because this rectangle shape is not gonna work out. I mean, maybe it would, but what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use methods and make these methods of related to get attribute, and basically use dunder get attr. It's what the decorators for a getter and setter attributes on objects use. And if I do that, I should be able to implement C or C++ functions in the methods that respond to any kind of get item, any kind of brackets, any kind of different attribute name you put after a period. And respond with the right value, which will have to call a function because it's these weird objects that don't have standard layouts. But I'm still getting segfaults, and that's probably what I'm going to have to work on next. What I've done now is we got our recursive boxes, and it renders, it jumps straight to a REPL. So now I can say things like print hello world and import mcrfpy. But as soon as I try to access this type I've created, the UI frame, and in any sense at all, if I try to get the repr of the type, if I try to import it, UI frame, segfault. And that's a little confusing. So the first thing I did was set up debugger. So first I have to recompile with symbols. Just doing the debugger was me getting familiar with the build script before I rewrite it to save some of these things. But I think symbols will have to be rebuilt either way. Maybe I should just build the symbols continuously while I'm in development. I don't know. And if I run debug, it'll pull up GDB, at which point I can just type run. There's the program. Access the type, get that segfault, and it's inside object.h, that's inside Python's source code, and it says pyObject repr. So I need to add a repr to the type, I guess, because this thing, I added a repr to the object, which you do not need for the level I'm at. Like if it just said object with memory address, that would be fine for the moment. So I need to add a repr to the type, not a repr to essentially the instances of the type. But I don't know why that would crash at all. Even ChatGPT can't really help me with this, so it's time to bash my head against it for a bit. YouTube seems to be bugging out. One sec. Huh. 8-second keyframes. Whatever, I'm not tinkering with it here and now. Streaming and programming, completely different skill set. All right, let's carry on. And to do so, yeah, I'm kind of stuck on this one. So let's start by consulting ChatGPT. Okay, so what I'm going to do is give it the segmentation fault. If I can copy out of this text editor's terminal. One, 3, 3, was it? Let's see if short mean ChatGPT helps. Didn't seem to have even responded. Wow. I think I've provide extremely terse responses might have been too strong wording of a instruction. The less fancy thing about running your own ChatGPT is that you have to wait for the whole response to come back. It doesn't scroll in. Yeah. Py mod init func. Py init my module. So we're going to create the module. If module's null, get ready. If py type ready, hadn't used that one before. Return null. Increase ref my type. Add objects, the new type object return module. This looks familiar. So what can we change here? Py type object. There's that header. Doesn't apply in my case. Basic size. Size of. Give it a name. There's a repr function. TP repr. What does this mean? I mean, that's the reference to it. Yeah, I don't think I'm doing not getting to the bottom of this. Let's take its advice and try to move it into a separate module. So here's the PyType object. Let's make a, and the module would be, let's see, return module. This is basically it. So this would, I don't even know what to call it. My module. No, this is the wrong one. It's kind of a stupid module. All right, I think I gotta take a break for the kid. But that's what I gotta put in my other module. Okay, stand by. Might be. Kid woke up. Where was I? Where was my brain at? This is bitrate too low, or keyframe rate too low. So I get for changing the profile right before. All right. Huh. Adding UI frame to objects. Returning module. What calls this? The API setup, right? API init, which is called by game engine. Oh, the constructor. API init. We import ourselves, and we are good to go. And that all runs fine, but the Python environment doesn't respond well to this object after loading it. Let's try a more trivial Python type and make sure that I'm not insane. Honestly, I could just like borrow the entire points. So at the end, we'll need to add it to a module. We don't need the scriptable module. That's my example that Rogueface API is based off of. So let's take this entire point class. Whoops. So if I'm correct, let's see, PyPoint module. We just got to import this module too. Because the other alternative would be to, like, I don't really want to add another module. I want to add an object to my module. So before we return the module in mcrfpy, create module, return module, Add a note. Oh, actually, one other thing I want to do before we do this. Like, if am I able to do type mcrfpy dot UI frame? No, I can't examine it in any way. So let's put what we need to do. And I think what namespace I put this all in was okay. So let's try to build that. And what I would like to see happen is a little point we can use on the Python prompt, a point class. Here's the REPL. Points. If I go to UI, what does this pytype def say about point? UI frame, pymethods, members, pypoint type, point.point. Can I import? I did not do that same thing. So let's call this. I don't think that should make a difference, but the other thing I could do is double check if it's actually doing the thing. If it doesn't succeed, it's a little weird. Did I miss a compilation error? There we go. Either designate all of them or none of them. So I saw this before. It's because of that. Can't treat it like a struct in C++20. Yeah, that was a compilation thing, because I should have caught that last time if the file was properly saved. I should really get an actual IDE, shouldn't I? The things we spend our time on. Okay, so that segfaulted too. So that's unique. Didn't say anything about not being able to add it. PyModule add object m points PyObjects pypoint type. It's really wild. There's the methods. Let's have a look at PyModule def. Maybe I need to do something else. still faster than the documentation. I think the Python API docs are a little dense. Like something that really is difficult to work with them is like for example this, if that's a list of all the members of this struct, I don't know how to quickly get to that in the Python documentation. Some of these are opaque structs, which means there really isn't supposed to be a list, but I personally need a list. Maybe I don't care if that's all of them or if they're in a certain order, but I need to be able to read what this thing can do to understand what the heck it's for. So here's my module. It's got a name, it's got a doc string, and in my definition here, I have just a curly brace of values, which is head init, name, doc strings null, size -1, methods, that thing, and then sentinel value at the end for I guess Python to iterate through and determine that's the end of it. But I can only add methods, so done. Here's all the methods from my API. Oh, is it segfaulting because I did something else to... Okay, I gotta check that these all exist still. Wait. What did I comment out? I think this might be a different instability now that I'm thinking about it. What was that thing I did with grid? Grid point type. Import grid point. Okay, I think I just commented this out. Something I did that was bad that I wanted to move away from is the engine is actually importing a Python script in source scripts. For example, like grid here. It just defines some classes which this thing imports, and then it looks for members of a certain name on this thing. So that was because I couldn't figure out how to wrap types on C++ side, but it's really not good to have your engine rely on a certain script file being present to define the type. You know, no reason you couldn't create a new subtype in a script after it exists, but this was, okay, create Python translations of types. So I was actually getting, like if I run this, if I do a import grid segfault, if I run this and say, got an exception, no problem there. It's not like holding an exception that's not done. Sometimes it does that if there's a Python exception inside the load up sequence. So I think, what do I need to do to debug this? It's so freaky. Let's do the same thing again. Okay, that's good. It defines it, and then it has a segfault. Segfaulting is now how I exit. Let's see if that does the same thing when I import grid as when I... because grid.py is that little plain old data class in Python that for some reason I felt I needed to define. Now just importing it gives a segfault. Segfault. So let's run this with debugger on now. Same thing. Pi object is GC. Saw that one before. Don't know what that's for. And debug again. Pi object repr. Okay, so two different segfaults in Python. But if we don't import any classes, here's API init. Here's, is it under this? No. Pi init mcrfpy. It's really not a great abbreviation for the API, but it's what I got for the moment. Let me just say, I get it. It's gonna, we're not gonna add any types to it. We're just gonna return the module as I was previously using it and see if I've not even created a new, wait, M was not, who cares? You're gonna return. Let's see if this is actually an old segfault that I have somehow avoided and accidentally just found now. Return M not declared. Is that not clear? Oh. Didn't save the file. It's rookie hour here. We're running. We're crashing. So that imports fine. But if I try to add an object to the module, okay, my only question then is if the object I'm adding, which has its definition in the UI here, are there any things on here that are mandatory that are missing? Like I have repr and hash as null. Does that matter? Who cares? Dealloc, is that necessary? Like setting it as null, is that going to provide the default? Can I just leave it not defined? Oh, wait. So create the module. Add point to it. Oh boy. Equals return. I am brain dead tonight. All right, we're debugging. Okay, here's my repr. We should be able to say import mcrf py.point segfaulted. So go to UI, pytype object. And I'm going to start Googling at the same time. Name basic size flags. Name basic size flags. Members, methods, init, new. And a name. The least offensive one possible. Oh, whoops. Still segfaults. Object repr. Yeah, I got no idea. So this would be PyModule add object. Like, this thing has a trained response to the term segfault. All right, let's see if this Stack Overflow is the right brand of crazy. I could try adding PyTrue to see if I got a similar issue to him. The module initialization function must return the module object. I mean, return M. It does that. This guy just made a dumb mistake. But what does that struct return? It doesn't need to be returned. It's being passed as an argument to add object. Nope. Let's try to add I need to add a reference to. Let's see if it works. It doesn't do that stuff, so. PyTrue is a macro. That does work. So that's a little weird. Cast to PyObject. I mean, that works. So what's going on here? Super weird. It steals a reference only on success. All right, references, reference stealing. Basically, from what I gather, all Python objects have to be prepped for use with the garbage collector. So this increase reference is basically saying I need that object to have its count of things pointing to it to be +1. Decref, the opposite, reduce it by 1. That goes to 0. Nothing's pointing to it anymore. It can be garbage collected. Really weird. Now let me see if it's a namespacing issue. So let's go to UI. Again, just kind of guessing here. So let's find all the point stuff, point class example. PyPoint magnitude, PyPoint type. So we're going to take that here, take it out, go to PyInit, PyModule create, MCR of PyModule. We're going to put this whole class def here in the module init, PyModule create. Then we're going to add PyPoint type out of this current namespace. Why is there a reference there? Isn't this it's a struct. It's a static struct, right? Okay. Whoops. And let me also look at X platform. And let's find PyModule add object reference to type, reference to type, reference to type, identical. Okay. All right, that's the end of the stream and the end of my sanity. I estimated this at like 25% of the time. Right here. But this is like quickly becoming like unknown. I got it working in a trivial sense, but just putting it into my own engine is proven to be a nightmare, and I don't understand why. Okay, that's all. I will make my update video this weekend for devlog of the first 1/3 of my personal jam. So goodbye.